second that that door closes behind you, you have to not forget that you're in a prison and not forget the type of people that you're around.
Today, about 200,000 female corrections officers work round the clock, invisible to the public, in lockdown facilities.
2B, Bravo, 2B.
Prisons and jails can be a lifeline of employment. It's a steady job with benefits, but it can be dangerous.
Without trust in each other, we don't have control.
You never know when an inmate's got a shank and they're just going to walk up behind you and stick it right in your back. And whenever you walk out in the evening, it's like, whew, one more safe day.
But many female officers, like Lisa SULIMAN, say the inmates are not their only concern.
We're trained how to deal with inmates. We're not trained to be sexually assaulted by our coworkers, especially our supervisors. I was working in a unit on the far side of the yard, and I was in the restroom, and he unlocked the door and he came in, and he had his penis out, and he wanted me to touch it. I was assaulted numerous times. Every time he'd come in, he'd put his hand on my shirt, he'd reach over, he'd grab me, he'd grab my butt, he'd grab my hand, he'd say, oh, touch this, and he'd pull your hand, and I was always like, stop, stop. And it never stopped. I mean, it was a continuous thing. So I thought, I'm just the only one.
He's trying to grab me. He's trying to put his arms around me. He's trying to grab my breast. He's trying to grab my butt, trying to get his hands up my shirt. You tell him, no, quit, stop, leave me alone, get off. How many ways can a person say no?
One day we stepped in this one room, and when he stepped in, he flipped the light off. The next thing I knew, he was wanting me to perform oral sex.
The officers say their harasser was their supervisor, Stephen Harper. Around the same time as the alleged attacks, Sergeant Harper was twice recognized for outstanding job performance.
I never once mentioned anything about the sexual harassment because I didn't want to be humiliated with my coworkers. Didn't want to lose my job, my family.
The officers say it wasn't an easy decision to come forward. This is the first time they have spoken on camera about their experiences.
But then I thought, I can't be afraid. It's not about just protecting myself. It's about protecting every female inside that institution.
In May 2013, Colleen PAYTON finally told the captain about the alleged abuse. He sent a report to the prison's warden, Joseph Miko. He assigned a human resources administrator with no training or prior experience investigating sexual harassment complaints to investigate. We obtained a copy of the investigation report, which states that Sergeant Harper was very matter-of-fact, as though he had nothing to hide. It concludes that not only was the claim unsubstantiated, but that Sergeant Harper had been falsely accused.
These organizations cannot investigate themselves.
Kevin LUIBRAND is a civil rights lawyer who has handled hundreds of cases holding law enforcement to account.
Somebody in human resources says, well, he says A and she says B. They shrug their shoulders and say, well, we can't establish it. The bosses get to say, well, we had it investigated, but they're institutionally, structurally, they're corrupt reports.
Fearing retaliation, PAYTON refused to put her complaint in writing. This was one of the reasons her claim was dismissed. But 10 state corrections departments, including Kentucky, told us that verbal and written complaints should be treated equally.
I was afraid to report it. I was afraid. I was ashamed.
A fourth officer, named DONNA ADKINS, waited over a year to report an alleged attack by the same sergeant. We've obtained a tape recording of State Police Detective Donnie McGrath interviewing her.
You know what I'm here to talk to you about today?
Probably over the incident with Stephen Harper.
That's exactly what I want to talk to you about.
I'm not the only one that he's done that to.
Okay.
There's other women here. But what am I going to do? You know what I'm saying? I'm scared to death right now.
The detective told us that he considered the alleged assault a misdemeanor, for which the statute of limitations had expired. Eventually, Sergeant Harper would have to answer the allegations against him. In this video deposition, he was questioned by an attorney for the 4 women.
Did you ever at any time pull your penis out and put your hands down Colleen Payton's shirt?
No.
Did you do that to
No.
Donna Adkins?
No.
Have you ever touched Lisa SULIMAN in an inappropriate sexual manner?
No.
And you have no explanation as to why these 4 women would come up with these very similar stories.
Unless they got together and tried to make up a good story, I have no idea.
Our investigation shows that what the officers at Little Sandy told us about harassment is far from isolated. We spoke to dozens of officers across the country and found lawsuits in almost every state.
Women who work in one state prison say the danger they face came from their co-workers.
Alleging 4 officers who either sexually harassed her or who helped cover up the harassment.
Harassed for 2 years until it finally escalated to an attack.
He pulls out his taser, chases her down, and shocks her with it from behind.
As women have entered the workforce, there has been resentment on the part of men. And no question that there has been sexual harassment. I've certainly seen it myself.
Martin Horn, a former commissioner for the New York City Corrections Department, says reporting harassment can have repercussions.
Retaliation is far worse than the act itself.
When I filed my harassment paperwork, that's when the retaliation started, almost immediately.
Sergeant Laura Seabury had big ambitions for high rank at Rensselaer County Jail in upstate New York. But that all changed late one night. She spoke to us for the first time publicly about her experience.
One night, he was in charge of the shift that I was working on. When we were almost finished, he pushed me up against the doors, and he grabbed my breasts, and all night long it played in my head, should I tell or should I just shut up? Because I had learned years before that you don't write reports about your fellow employees. You don't cross that line.
When she eventually spoke out, the torment began.
It was horrible. They were like avenging the sergeant that attacked me in the mezzanine because I had finally told on him.
Seabury reported the retaliation, but her complaints fell on deaf ears. So that's when she asked attorney Kevin LUIBRAND to fight her case.
LORA SEABURY broke the code. Now she's the enemy. When people make sexually charged comments to you, they're making a statement that they won't support you, they won't be there when the inmates come at you. So you're alone.
If you're ostracized from the team, it could be dangerous. If, say, a woman makes a complaint against a superior officer or a fellow officer, and then we're working the same place, and you get in trouble and you call for help, I can choose not to hear you. I didn't hear her call for help. Prove that I did.
Should something have happened, no one was going to respond.
Eventually, the New York Human Rights Division awarded Seabury $3 million, the highest amount ever awarded for retaliation. But no action was taken against the retaliators themselves.
Justice prevailed, but I don't think that anybody should ever have to go through what I went through. And I know other people go through this in other facilities.
Wherever I turned, nothing was being done. So the only other option you have is to get an attorney and to fight it.
In September 2014, the 4 officers in Sandy Hook filed a lawsuit against Sergeant Harper, Warden Miko, and the Corrections Department. Soon after, they were joined by a 5th woman, Jennifer Dennis.
My supervisor was Sergeant Stephen Harper. I'd used the restroom, got ready to open the door, and the door hit me, knocked me backwards, and he had jumped through the door and grabbed me. He actually broke the button off my top of my shirt. After the incident, I went straight to my supervisor, but she never did anything about it.
Representing the officers is attorney NED PILLERSDORF.
Under Kentucky law, if there's an allegation of sexual abuse made in a prison, you are under a mandatory duty to report that up. So I think there's been 2 victimizations. 1, the actual acts, and 2, the way Miko and the institution have handled this.
We repeatedly tried to get Warden Miko's response, but the Kentucky 2013 Warden of the Year declined our interview requests. We did obtain court footage of a preliminary hearing in the officer's lawsuit.
You have a predator loose in your institution you haven't done anything about.
Don't know.
Sergeant Harper failed to testify at the preliminary hearing, so we wanted to give him an opportunity to respond.
Mr. Harper?
What?
Oh, hey, we were hoping to speak to you about the allegations that have been made against you.
You have contact with my lawyer.
Harper's lawyer declined to comment. In the meantime, Sergeant Harper still works at Little Sandy Correctional Complex. At the injunctive hearing, the judge ordered that Harper's shift be modified to avoid any contact between him and the 4 officers.
It's really hard to go in every day and wonder, you know, what's he gonna do next? I was always outgoing, smiling, laughing, talking to everybody. It doesn't happen anymore.
And now it's every day that I live in hell down there when I put that uniform on.
The ramifications from telling the truth has been nothing short of a nightmare for me. I reached the point that I didn't want to deal with this anymore. I had picked out the spot, the time. I was probably 20 minutes out from taking my life.
It's not been an easy chapter in my life, and I'm just hoping how soon we can close this chapter, get through it and get it over with.
In early December, Sergeant Harper settled the lawsuit against him for a confidential sum. All other charges against the Corrections Department are going to trial in the spring.
This shouldn't happen to anybody. No one should have to suffer under the hands of their coworkers.